Hi, Facebook land. GGinspire here to go live another day. So excited, ready to inspire again and share with you some thoughts that we've had over the last week. Every week we do this 1 o'clock Thursdays. I think we're going to start doing it, here and there a few other times. So looking forward to it. Glad that you're here with us. And invite your friends, share with others. Really excited because I used to be well, I'm still a regular average person, but I used to be somebody who was in school, studied, did what I was supposed to do as far as what my parents wanted. Go to school, get good grades, study hard so you can have a great life. And I changed my course at some point. I became an entrepreneur, and I decided that I wanted a different life. I wanted opportunity, and I wanted to have more control. And so, this is one of the ways that I've now decided to kind of put myself out there and let people know that, you have the shot to be able to do things and control your life any way that you want, but it's sometimes scary, and you have to take those steps, and you have to, do a little bit that's in the realm of the unknown. So I appreciate you guys getting on, and I'm excited to be able to share some of my story with you and some of my thoughts. Maybe we'll do a short one today, who knows, but it just, what questions you see or how we get more people on, and so we can share some of the stories that I have and answer some questions today. So I wanted to talk a little bit today about connecting with people, because that's a really important thing. In this day and age, I see people on their phones so much. I see so many conversations that are, long, and they're going by text, and, sometimes I think you have the lost art of conversation. So you have a lot of people that, have you ever gone out to a dinner recently or gone out somewhere and you see 4 or 5 people sitting together and they're all on their phones and they're not even speaking to each other, and they're not actually having conversations. Sometimes they're even texting each other at the table to talk about somebody else who's at the table with them, right? But I think that lost art of conversation is really important. And I was watching something with Gary V the other day. Gary Vaynerchuk, he's a speaker. Business is very, very successful. And he was talking about how your cell phone is basically like, this is your key to your future, and becoming an entrepreneur and becoming to be successful in life is to utilize your phone to do it. He said you should be on it more, not less, and so I kind of agree with that, but I also feel like, when I sit down with somebody and I talk to them face to face, it's so important to be able to connect with them and get in their world and communicate with them and show energy and show passion, enthusiasm, even like anger, resentment, love. You know what I mean? These are things that you're not able to necessarily show via text or voicemail or what have you. Video helps. Obviously, we've been watching movies for years, and with the advances of social media and what have you, a lot more videos, and people are expressing a lot. Just as I'm expressing to you some of like the things that I'm passionate about. It's really important to be able to get those emotions out to other people. So it's so important to be able to connect with people, but at the same time, we have to utilize technology to our advantage. As we see more and more people and grow, and the world gets larger, we have to be able to find ways to get that energy, get that passion out to as many people as we can. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to start going live, because I've always been, a pretty private person in general. Like, I could tell you a lot, but it always depends on who's asking what I'm going to tell, right? And so at the end of the day, I kind of figured, one of the best ways for me to start to get out and be able to, promote myself, so to speak, is to get out and really share with people who I am, what I stand for, and what's important to me. So I thought a lot about how to connect with people, and I had a couple questions that I came up with. I don't know if anybody has any else. But one of the best ways that I like to be able to connect with people is I undoubtedly want to be able to sit with them face to face, or even a phone call. So when I make a phone call to someone, or I sit down with them face to face, I don't have a spiel or a shtick or something like that I'm trying to impart to them. I don't have a script that I'm going off of, like boom, boom, boom. I don't have that. I like to be able to ask them questions, able to find some commonalities. I like to be able to build rapport with them, because oftentimes, like, if they have kids, I have kids. I've got 2 young girls, if they've got boys, I ask them how old they are, so I try to find similarities within our lives so that we can find some way to connect, because if they're about the same age, even if they have boys and I have girls, there's always kid stories to go with. If they're married, I can, find out interesting stories about their spouse, and I can tell them some interesting stories about my spouse too. Because there's so many. When you live with someone for as long as you have lived with my spouse and I have lived together, we're undoubtedly going to have stories. Now, some stories are going to be okay to tell in certain settings, and some stories are not. But the idea is that you want to be able to, find ways to laugh together. You know what I mean? Because laughter is that way to connect. And that's something that is missing when you're texting. It's missing when you're having a voicemail because it's one-sided. And have you ever sent a text message to someone that you meant a certain way, but because you couldn't inflect your voice or do certain things or accentuate certain parts of the sentence, people missed the message and they got upset or they took it the wrong way or something like that? That's what happens with communication. So sometimes like video is a lot better in a lot of ways, but it's important to be able to understand how to connect with people in different ways. So building rapport, I want to find commonalities. I want to ask them questions. I want to kind of get into their world and figure out who they are, what's important to them. Why are they sitting in front of me? Ultimately, what's their big vision of what they'd like to be able to get out of even the meeting that we're having? What's your outcome? What's your desired outcome for this meeting? So, being really pointed. But I also don't want to, give away everything that I've got. You know what I mean? I want to ask as many questions as I can so that I make sure that what I'm saying to them is valuable and to give them as much as possible. So yeah, the emotions. I think that's the biggest thing that I want to be able to get to is the more that I can get a sense of how somebody feels, the more that I'm able to connect with them and bring something real to the table versus something that's just cookie cutter and almost like plain vanilla that you would do the same for every single person in front of you. I don't want that. I want custom. I want to feel appreciated. I heard once a long time ago that people, they're all wearing like a big neon sign that says, make me feel special, make me feel wanted, make me feel important, And if you make that person in front of you feel important, whether you are as an entrepreneur or you're in medicine or you're in sales or you're in retail, whatever it is, when you make people feel special and valued and appreciated, in my world, I think that's a valuable thing. And they love it, right? And everybody feels appreciated in a different way, but you want to figure out what is it about them and what is it that makes them excited or happy, you know what I mean? And you want to push that button, because when you push that button, the more that you learn about people, the more you realize that the relationship gets more solid and stronger between people as you give them what they need. So there's one other thing that I wanted to touch on was, people are always coming to me and, sharing with me some of the adversities that they're having, things that are going on, and sometimes they ask me like, well, how do you stay, how do you keep focused on what you want to be able to do, right? The way that I stay focused on what I want to be able to do is I look at the big picture. I think about my daughters. I think about where I want to be. I imagine what my life is going to be like, when we reach the goals that we have. We have some huge goals that we're going to achieve, and actually we're going to do a lot of them in November. I'm very excited about that because it's going to be basically a November to remember for us. But there's so many things we want to be able to do, and so I imagine almost like those things are already happened, right? They're already happened, and almost like I'm daydreaming all day. But I'm thinking about it in the morning and at night about all those things that make me happy and where we're going. And have you ever, I know maybe a few years ago you guys remember hearing about like the tsunami, right? In Thailand and a lot of like other countries. There's been a few tsunamis in the last few years. And I remember when I was younger, reading and learning about tsunamis in school, I imagined like this huge, enormous tidal wave, like just coming at you, like you look up at it and you're just like totally terrified, right? But what actually a tsunami is, it's almost, they rarely happen like that, right? It's almost like a series of waves that are so fast that you aren't able to stop them, and the water keeps coming and coming and coming. So I was thinking about it the other day. What happens before a tsunami, right? Before a tsunami, the ocean retracts really, 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 really long, right? Keeps going down the beach, down the beach, down the beach, all the way in and in, right? On a normal beach, it goes in a certain distance, and then the waves come in. But when there's a tsunami coming, although you wouldn't realize it because it's not like there's a a big sign that the ocean puts out that says tsunami on its way, right? So the ocean retracts really far, and so what happens oftentimes is that people are so enthralled by the fact that the ocean is receding so much that they follow it, right? They follow it, and they're like, gosh, because we can go so far out into the ocean, right, to where we couldn't step before, where it was all covered in water, and so they're following the waves inward, 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 and they're looking at the sand crabs, they're looking at the the big rocks and the kelp and all the different things that they see, like all those little things on the sand floor that they couldn't see before, right? And what happens is that when they're looking and focused on all those little things in their path that they couldn't see before, the tsunami hits them. All of a sudden, the waves start to come in and crash and crash and crash and crash, and they can get swept away, right? But it's the people that stand back on the beach and are watching far away, that are looking for that wave, that are actually the ones that have an opportunity to be able to really ride it, right? So in our lives, what happens is that when stuff starts to recede, we start focusing on the little itty bitty things that are happening, and we're not focusing on that big wave, right? You have to focus on that big wave, your end result, what you want, your vision, your passion, your why, whatever it is, that's your wave. And so if you're focused on that thing, then when the wave comes in, you're going to be able to handle it, enjoy it, surf it, whatever you want to do, instead of focusing on those little things. And so I thought about that the other day, and it hit me as something that I think would make an impact on you guys. So I don't know if we have any questions. I'd love to answer a few and see what we got.
I have a question. This comes from Jewel.
Okay. Hey, Jewel.
Do you feel that face-to-face connection is foreign to the younger generation since they are taught to text, email, video chat? And I'm going to add to that, what challenges do you have connecting with them since they don't like phone calls?
Well, I think that when you're talking about millennials or maybe even younger, it is sometimes a challenge to connect with them face to face. They don't want to have phone calls. They only want to text. So the way that I normally do it is that I actually connect with them the way that it's comfortable for them. So that's how I start, right? So change doesn't happen overnight. So I'm going to have to text them, message them, Facebook them, message them on Instagram, LinkedIn, although they say LinkedIn is for old people, which is hilarious because I was like, oh, okay, I guess I must be considered old then. I think I was telling somebody the other day that like a year or two ago, somebody said, I said, oh, can I get your business card? And she was like, oh yeah, you should just hit me on Instagram. I'm like, okay, sure, no problem. So yeah, I think you have to speak to people or connect with people in the medium that they want at first. And then you can build a little bit of rapport with them and build that kind of relationship. And then you can say, hey, I want to talk to you on the phone, because in order to be able to get people to understand that there's certain things that you're not going to be able to convey by text or by message, you have to be able to build enough of a rapport with them in order to be able to make that conversion. I always find that when I speak to people face to face, if I'm able to establish that connection with them, then I'm able to make them understand the level of importance and the level of urgency. Again, urgency is something that's hard to impart by text. That's not considered rude. You know what I mean? Because if you're speaking to somebody in all caps, or you're like exclamation pointing like crazy, I could be doing this, and that I'm, more urgent about what I'm saying. But if I do that to you in a text, you're like, dude, she's crazy, right? So I think that you have to make that connection, and then can kind of convert into a more face-to-face. But I always find that face-to-face is one of the best places to build true trust with people. You can look in somebody's eyes and see, do they believe what they're telling you? Because that's not something that you can get by text or by message either. If I believe, if you can tell when you talk to me that I believe what I'm saying to you is true, then we've established some type of rapport, and we can potentially do business from there. Thanks, Joel.
Okay, I have another question. This comes from John. It was too long.
Hi, John.
It was too long to put on Facebook. And the question is, I can open doors, I can create initial rapport, but I tend to move on instead of building continued relationships. Do you have any advice to improve?
So you can open doors, you can start to get things happening, but you have a hard time turning that into something long-term.
Yes.
Okay. I think that one of the best ways that I like to do that, because you're right, like I found that sometimes I'm able to make that initial connection, but then that it might fall off. And that really comes from you. So that comes from continuing to follow up. Even if it ends up being a follow-up text, like if you made a connection, then I would, want you to follow up with them pretty soon after you made that connection, build rapport, what have you. Hey, it was really great to see you last week. Love to be able to chat again. Let me know what your schedule is, or maybe I'll follow up with you in a couple months. Whatever. However, the nature of your business, as what would be an appropriate time period to follow up with them. But you want to do it. Like I was told when I started in business, and I think I mentioned this a few weeks back. I was told that when I started in business that you want to touch people 6 times a year. Now, 10 years later, it's 22. So that's like a Facebook message, an article, a blog, a phone call, a text, email them, oh, I found this really interesting, so that's 22 times in a year. That's a lot of times. But because there's so much exposure and stimulation that people experience, you need to make sure that you're touching them multiple times. So that's what I would say is like follow-up is key in that regard, to be able to make sure that you are the person on their minds, right? When they think of whatever it is that you're doing, that's what they need to be, they need to remember that it's you. Because if they think about how much advertisement you see on Facebook, on, you don't see it too much on Instagram really, but, on TV, if you watch TV, or you go out and there's signs everywhere, and there's advertising everywhere. And so sometimes it's not what's right, it's what's right now. You know what I mean? What's right now in front of me. And so you want to make sure that you spent enough time laying the groundwork with people that when they think of whatever it is, your product, your service, whatever it is that you offer to them, that you are the one that comes into their mind first, before they may see that sign, but then think, Lillian does that, and so I'm gonna call her. She texted me this the other day. That's the best thing that I would do if I were you guys.
John's giving me a thumbs up, so he likes the app.
Oh, good. Okay. Thanks, John.
I have another question here from Jewel.
Okay.
For someone that has already been drawn into the ocean and they feel they've been hit with a tsunami and they don't see a way out, what do you recommend?
Call someone. Call someone who can help you, or at least talk to you. I mean, you're what do they say on that show? A lifeline. Like you need a what's it called? A life preserver. You need a life preserver jacket. You need a dinghy. You need something to be able to make sure you're at least floating in the water and you're not getting swept away. The challenge is that what you don't want is you don't want to like be swept away in the water and get slammed into a building or a tree or something like that, right? So the idea is that you have to be able to ask for help, and that may be one of the hardest things. And sometimes it might be just having a conversation with somebody else or seeking out whatever help you can get in any way possible. But I was advised by a family member once who told me basically, look, when adversity strikes and things happen, that's the time for communication to increase. It's not the time for communication to decrease. That's the challenge, is that when we have adversity, we tend to draw inward and go, I need to handle it and deal with it and do everything I can. I just got to figure this out myself. But what's best is that if you actually, for people that you trust, I mean, you're not going to walk down the street and be like, hey, I've got issues, help me out. Like, you're not going to do that with strangers, but the people that you trust, say, hey, I need your advice. What do you think about this? I have some questions. I'm looking for some advice in this area or some help or what have you. There's only so much that you can figure out when you're starting to think in a circle. And when you have adversity, sometimes you're not able to think yourself out of it. take action, right? And you may think you have it all figured out, but you're thinking on your level right now. The problem that you have needs to be solved at a higher level. And so you may need to talk to somebody who's maybe experienced that problem before or had issues like that in the past, that can help pull you up to that higher level so you can then solve the problem. So communication is really, really important. So you got to send out for a life preserver or something. Thanks, Jewel.
So another question that's not on that topic is, how do you help others to maintain their focus? You have talked about keeping your own focus.
Okay. So helping others keep their focus. You know, when you're in leadership or you're in management or anything like that, you need to be mindful of what's important to you, but you also need to be aware of what's important to the people that you're working with. And it's their family, it's their business, it's their income, it's all those things. Like, you have to be mindful of those things, and you have to find ways to help them stay motivated. And so that goes back to connecting with people. So if you're able to fully connect with the people that you're working with and give them some type of value in the relationship together, then you'll be able to, then you have enough rapport built with them that you can push them a little bit and challenge them and remind them of what their whys are, right? Because we're all out there pushing to be able to reach our goals somehow, right? And so if you don't have a relationship with the people that you're working with, it's going to be very difficult for you to push them, right? Because they're going to be like, you don't really care. So I heard a quote once, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. You have to care about your people, and you have to be willing sometimes to be a little bit more vulnerable with your people and let them know some of the challenges that you're having so that they feel okay with letting you know some of theirs. You know, so I think that at the end of the day, being able to help and push and motivate others comes from, ultimately, it comes from connecting and letting them know that no matter what, you're still going to care about them, you're still going to be there for them, okay? And so people have to find their own path and they have to find their own way, but they're not in it by themselves. And when you're trying to, you know, as a leader, as a manager, or what have you, you need to be able to kind of extend an olive branch to them, like I was just saying, and help pull them up to the next level so they can start getting some of those problem solving for themselves motivated. So I appreciate you guys. Great question. We've got an incredible event coming up on Sunday. We're going to be in our brand new West Hills office in California. Very excited about that. Actually, we're doing some expansion in North Carolina also. I think it's tonight. Tonight, if you know anybody from North Carolina, there's an event in Charlotte that I've been. Please share this with anyone that you know from North Carolina. Share this video. You know, there's some incredible information here. You don't realize that there are people out there that may really be looking to, you know, become an entrepreneur. They want leadership. They want mentorship. They want to see a strong woman who's able to go out there and share some of her story. And so you never know who this might make an impact on, right? So we're doing an incredible event Sunday afternoon with champagne and orange juice. It's going to be great. We're going to talk about, we have an incredible speaker. Her name is Donna Chrysler. She's been doing our series of women's events, women's and couples events. She's a 25-year veteran in business and business consulting and coaching, and she's absolutely amazing. She's going to talk about how to create a budget for yourself and 10 easy steps and facing your fears to get more of what you want. This is going to be an absolutely incredible, gosh, I'm losing my throat. This is going to be an absolutely incredible November. You know, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day who was telling me, gosh, you know, business is really tough. You know, at the end of the year, you know, people are really having a hard time and, you know, trying to put a bunch of stuff together, but it's really hard. You know, things really slow down. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you kidding? I was like, I'm busier than ever right now. Like, just like I couldn't get everything that I wanted to get done in October. It was all spilling into November, which I'm not upset about. But it's, you know, this is an incredible time where people are really thinking about, how do I make sure that I don't end up in the same position this January that I was in last January? So they want to make changes. And so in my business, which I'm not going to go into like a lot of detail, but in my business, that means that it's busier than ever. So like November and even December are like some of the busiest times in our business. So take advantage of the fact if you want to come out and you're a business owner, you want to be able to network, you want to be able to share your business in front of 100 plus people. This is an opportunity to be able to do it. You're going to hear from a great speaker. There's incredible value. I sat with a lady the other day who came to one of our events. She was like, I cannot believe that you guys do these events for free. The value that you bring to people and how much service you are of without charging them and feeding them at the same time. Like, oh my goodness. It's like, I want to be a part of something like that where people actually make an impact and do something great for others. So we appreciate you. We're excited. Make sure you comment. Make sure you share. If you like this with your favorite emoji and share this video, we'll make sure that you have a Chrysler. So thank you so much. Have a great week. GGinspire. Be inspired for a great life.